On this module, we're going to deal with the emergency stop or the controlled stop. So how do we do it? Well, with our briefing folder, we go to the recap and experience. Have they done an emergency stop before? If the answer is yes, we can go to the questions at the bottom of the page and then find out what they know, what they don't know. If not, if this is the first time they've done it or they don't think they've done it before, as always, recap and experience. So have you done anything similar to this, Chris? I don't think so. Well, have you, as we've been driving around, have we come up to traffic lights where they've changed and we've had to hit the brake and stop? Oh, yeah, I've done that. Have we come up to roundabouts where we're thinking, great, I can go, then all of a sudden the car comes razzing round, and again, we've had to hit the brakes and stop? Oh, yeah, that's happened a couple of times as well. Well, that's kind of the thing we're going to be doing, but we're doing it as if we're saving the life of a child that stepped out in front of us. So by the end of today's lesson, because remember, we always give the goals for the lesson, you should be able to bring the vehicle to a prompt stop as if to save the life of a child that stepped out into the road. You're going to be able to understand why it's important not to waste time checking mirrors, and you're going to understand more about how the vehicle handles differently under harsh braking conditions. So how do we do it then? Well, the first thing is quick reactions. When I ask you to say stop, we've got to go quickly from the gas pedal onto the brake. Now, with this, you might want to get them to sit there and practice it. Just say, put your foot over the gas pedal, and when I say stop, just go onto the brake. Okay? Stop. And then if they whack it down, you can say, not that hard. We don't want to hit the brake too hard because it could cause a skid, and we'll come on to that in a bit. So that brings us to firm and progressive braking. So as we said, not hitting the brake so hard that you begin to skid, because you're still moving forward. If your wheels are locked because you've hit the pedal that hard, then you're still traveling forward. You're still going to hit the person in front of you. That's why it's called a controlled stop. Steering, we want to keep both hands on the wheel. There will come times when we need to steer around something as we brake. However, for this one, we want to practice stopping in a straight line. And with our hands on the wheel, what it means is they act as a shock absorber. So as the weight of the car is thrown forward when we brake, which I'll explain in a bit, our hands and arms being there kind of cushion us on the wheel and keep us in position. If we're in the manual, we want to then talk about clutch timing. So BBC, brake before clutch. Because if the clutch goes down first and you're on a downhill, you're going to pick up speed. However, if you don't press the clutch down, you've put the brake on, you come to a stop, the clutch doesn't go down, you're obviously going to stall and the car is going to jump forward. So just as a person, is thinking, whoa, that was close, they almost hit me, because you've stopped, but then you stall, the car just shoots forward and hits them anyway. So it kind of defeats the object. Then once we've stopped, we're going to pull the handbrake on, go into first gear, get the bite point and the gas. Then we're going to do our observations. Now this is where we need to do left blind spot. And we work all the way around. And the reason for that is because we're in the normal driving position. Remember, it's an emergency stop. We didn't plan to stop there. So we're still in the middle of our lane. So motorbikes, scooters, bicycles can come up the inside of us. So we want to check left blind spot, left mirror, center mirror, ahead, right mirror, right blind spot. Then if it's safe, drive on. And that's basically what we want to say. And in a minute, we'll show you how going through the pictures helps you just rattle that off. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. But one of the things we want to mention to our pupil is, like on the right-hand page here, stopping isn't just how quickly the car stops. It's also your reaction time. Because once that person steps out, it's the fact that you go, oh, there's a person, I need to hit the brake. Then you hit the brake. So it's thinking time and then the actual stopping distance itself. So stopping distance is a combination of thinking distance and braking distance. So the thinking distance is how long it takes for the driver to react to a hazard. And the braking distance is how far your car travels while you've got your foot on the brake, attempting to bring it to a stop. So there are many different reasons for us needing to do an emergency stop or a controlled stop. People can step out looking at their phones. People can step behind buses, not thinking to look. People can walk from in between cars without even thinking. So this can happen quite quickly. So we need to be thinking and planning ahead. The more likely we are to be planning ahead, the less likely this situation is going to be needed, because we're already going to be preparing and thinking, do I need to slow down? Is someone going to step out? So as we said, we don't want to hit the brake so hard that we start to slide, because if we're in an older car without ABS, that car is just going to go wherever gravity wants to take you. So how do we do it? Well, this is the point where when we do this briefing, the more we do it, the more familiar we become. You pretty much just use this picture. So we've got to be prepared that we may need to do an emergency stop. Could be there's a sign telling us that children are about. Could be the fact that somebody's just kicked a ball out. Could be that we're going through the high street on a Saturday and someone sees their friends and just decides to run across. So how do we do it? Well, the first thing we do is not check the mirrors. Our priority is what's in front of us at this point. It's not the vehicles behind. They should be 2 seconds at least behind us, which is the safe distance to stop if something in front of you reacts. So then we're quickly going to go from the gas pedal onto the brake. We're going to keep our hands in the normal driving position on the wheel to act as that shock absorber. We're going to do brake before clutch. We're going to pull the handbrake on. Then we're going to do a full 360-degree observation from left blind spot, left mirror, center mirror, ahead, right mirror, right blind spot. And that's pretty much how we're going to do it. Now that you can make more interactive by question and answer. So the first thing we're going to do, Chris, is not check the mirrors. Why do you think in this instance we're not worried about checking what's going on behind us and how close the vehicles are? If someone's stepping out, like in this scenario, where's our priority going to be? Oh, the person in front. So then what aren't we worried about? Oh, the vehicle behind. Then if we need to stop quickly, what pedal do we quickly need to go on to? Oh, the brake pedal. Yeah. And then can you remember when we said we hold our hands in the normal driving position? Can you remember why that was? What does it do? Oh, you said it acts as like a shock absorber, doesn't it? Yeah. Well done. And then what do we then do? Which goes down first, the brake or the clutch? The brake. And can you remember why? And suddenly it's all interactive, it's client-centered. You're analyzing things together. You're getting them involved in the learning process. But the reason you're getting them involved is you know this subject now well. So everything that you would say as fully guided or for the first time, the reason we're doing this is it becomes question and answer. That's it. So when you get asked to do this, the examiner will normally pull you up at the side of the road. Sometimes they'll tell you on the go as we come down the road, I'm going to ask you to do an emergency stop. I'll hold my hand up so you've got an audio signal and a visual signal. And then I'll say stop. And I want you to stop safely and quickly. Just remember when we brake, the weight of the car is thrown forward. So like in this, if we've got, say, snow on the roof, which we shouldn't do because we should clear the car, but sometimes you do, and we stop quickly, what's going to happen? The snow's going to slide forward. Or if you've got people in the back, you could have had it where your mum or dad has hit the brakes and you go flying forward. The weight of the car is thrown forward. So as that happens, the weight goes forward to the front, so the back becomes a lot lighter. Now, it won't happen on this car, but on older cars, if the brakes aren't what's called aligned properly or set up properly, as you brake, it might move to one side or the other. In which case, then you have to do what's called correcting the skid. So if the back of the car goes to the right, you steer slightly to the right and into it. If the back of the car goes to the left, then steer to the left slightly, and that will correct the skid. This page is just about braking and skidding, so you may at some time want to go through this with the pupils, especially if there's different weather conditions. So you can use this as a separate lesson, or if you need to expand on skidding and the causes, you can do this afterwards. Focus on the emergency stop first, and then talk about this, because it goes into things like the driver fitness, what can affect the stopping distance, not having much sleep, late nights out, feeling unwell, being on medication, road surface conditions, loose gravel, icy or wet roads can be very slippery. So perhaps if you're, you come across roads that have been recently graveled, recently relaid, it's icy, it's wet, you can always do this as a separate lesson. As we said, when braking quickly, the weight is thrown forward, so the rear becomes very light. So this can cause a skid. And whichever way your car goes, so like here, the back of the car is going to the right, so we can steer to the right. Back of the car is going to the left, we can steer to the left. Many years ago, the speedway was a big thing with the motorbikes, and if you ever watch speedway bikes, the back will slide to the left, they'll steer to the left. So your wheel just follows where the back's going. Goes in slightly more detail about the braking distances, how it's the thinking distance first, then the braking distance. So if your thinking distance, is a lot slower, that stopping distance is going to really increase. And then the final bit is about ABS, that there's a myth that ABS stops you quicker. It doesn't. It doesn't stop you any quicker. What it does, it gives you a small measured amount of steering, because the brakes go on and off very, very quickly. So, as you'll notice from this graph, that with ABS, the major difference is if there was a car, you could hopefully steer around it. But you notice the distance isn't shorter than the car without ABS. But what it does mean is the car without ABS just couldn't steer. It's like being on a sled in the snow. You might face that way, but if gravity's taking you that way, that's the way you're going to go, because you've got no steering control. So it doesn't reduce the risk of skidding, doesn't reduce your stopping distance, doesn't mean you can stop any quicker. It just gives you a small measured amount of steering with that system. So hopefully you can steer around whatever's in your way. And that's our overall view for the briefing for the emergency stop.